Hello and welcome back to my knitting podcast. My name is Vilma and I'm a 23-year-old knitter based in Uppsala, Sweden. I currently study for my Master of Science in Pharmacy, but during my free time I like to knit. So in this podcast I like to share and talk about all things knitting and also what I have been working on lately. I'm very grateful to have you here and for all the support and love I have received ever since my second podcast episode. I hope you feel cozy and excited to talk about some knitting with me. In today's episode I have one finished object and 4 works in progress I would like to share with you. And I have also decided to include a little Q&A section at the end of this video. So if you're interested in getting to know me a little bit better, then please stick around until the end and I will answer some of your questions you have sent me. I would also like to thank all of you who have sent me some lovely questions. Unfortunately, I won't be able to answer all of your questions, but I will do my best to answer some of them, and I really hope that you enjoyed that part of the video. So with that said, let's jump into today's podcast. As I mentioned, I have one finished object and 4 works in progress. I also have this nice warm cup of tea. It's a lovely chai tea, very nice and comforting. It's a quite chilly but cozy grey autumn day here in Uppsala. So I feel very cozy. I hope you do too, and let's jump in. So per usual, I will start off by talking about what I'm wearing. And today I'm wearing the April cardigan. It's a pattern by PetiteKnit. And it looks like this. It's a lovely, very basic cardigan. This is actually the second one I've knitted. I like the first one so much, so I just had to knit a second one. I'm sure many of you have heard about this pattern before. It's a very good basic V-neck cardigan. It's knitted in all over stockinette with some ribbing at the cuffs and also at the bottom edge. I did, however, modify the pattern a bit. So for example, I decided to knit twisted rib instead of normal ribbing. So both on the sleeves and then also at the bottom edge. I also decided to knit a double knitted button band instead of the ribbed button band that the pattern calls for. I knitted the size small on the recommended needle size, which is 4mm needles, and I decided to knit the button band on 3mm needles. I do, however, believe I got a bit tighter gauge than what the pattern recommends. So the size may be a bit smaller. I do, however, really like how it fits. Over at PetiteKnit's website, she offers some free video tutorials on how to do certain steps in a pattern. And at the Champagne Cardigan project page, she has posted some video instructions on how to knit a double knitted button band and also how to knit the buttonholes. So I do really recommend you to go and check out those video tutorials at PetiteKnit's website if you're interested in knitting this double knitted button band instead of the rib one. Yeah, and as I said, I knitted mine on a slightly tighter gauge than what the pattern recommends, and I knitted mine in Filcolana Arwetta held together with Isager Silk Mohair. And if you have watched my previous videos, you may have noticed that I really like that yarn combination. I really like the Filcolana Arwetta and I also really like the Isager Silk Mohair. So I have used those yarns in many different projects, and I will also talk about them and show them later in this video as well, since I do use exactly that yarn combination for a project that I have showed you already. I believe that was everything I had to say about this cardigan, but please feel free to write down any questions you might have in the comment sections below this video. But as I said, I really like this pattern, I really like this garment. I have knit this pattern twice, so that really shows how much I like it. And yeah, I really recommend it. And now I would like to share with you my finished object for this episode. And here you have it, or them. It's the Overik mitten. It's a pattern by Skeindeer knits, and as you can see, it's this lovely traditional Selbu mitten, very Scandinavian inspired. And if you wonder why this pair looks so large compared to my hand, it's because I knitted this pair for my partner. So he picked out both the yarn and also the pattern. And yeah, I really like them. I really like how they turned out. And I believe he's pleased with the result as well. So let me show you a bit closer. So this is what they look like on the front. And this is on the back side. And the pattern wants you to choose needle size and gauge according to what size you want to knit. So I decided to knit these on 4mm needles, which gave me a gauge of 26 stitches and 27 rows per 10 centimeters, which is about a size 3. I believe there are 4 sizes in the pattern. And I'm very pleased with the size. It's maybe a bit on the snugger side, but not too small. So if I decide to knit this pattern again in the future, then I would maybe go up to a 4.5mm needle to get an even larger size for my partner. But the size is good enough. It definitely fits him and he likes them, so that's what matters. And these are knit in Viking garn Frøya, which is a sport weight yarn. It's a 80% wool, superwash wool, and 20% nylon. And you know, since it's a superwash yarn, they grow quite a bit while blocking. But that was just good for us, since the fit was a bit snug before blocking. So they fit even better after blocking. So that was very good. I can put them on so you can see a bit better. So here they are. I really like how they turned out. I knitted these exactly to pattern. However, I did notice when I was finished that I'd managed to switch the collar work motif on the thumb, so that this front side or back side of the thumb is actually supposed to be on the other side, and this motif here is supposed to be on the other side. But I don't know about you, but I don't think that really matters, and I think they look very good like this as well. So I just didn't bother to do anything about that. It didn't affect the fit of the thumb. It's just the color work that has been switched. So yeah, I'm very pleased with how they turned out, and I'm also quite jealous of my partner who gets to wear these now. But you know, maybe I'm allowed to borrow them every now and then. So there you have them, the Overik mittens by Skeindeer knits. So that's actually the only project I have managed to finish since my last episode, and that's because I'm working on quite a few different projects at the moment, and many of them I find very exciting and takes up a lot of my knitting time. And the first work in progress is the Terracotta sweater, which is a dropped shoulder colorwork design by the designer Lene Holme Samsøe. And here it is. So I showed this in my last episode, and by then I had just split 4 sleeves, and now I'm soon finished with the body. I have just finished the last colorwork design on the body, and now I will start on the ribbing. I'm knitting size 2 on the recommended needle size, which is 4mm needle for the stockinette, and then 3.5 for this textured design, and 3mm for the ribbing. I picked size 2 since it will give me the recommended positive ease of 25 centimeters, and I just really liked how it looked on the model, so yeah, that's what I went for. And I'm knitting mine in Filcolana Arwetta held together with Isager Silk Mohair, so the yarn combination I mentioned earlier, and they create this very soft and fluffy, nice fabric together, and I'm super pleased with how it's turning out. And I really like the soft contrast between the blue and the beige. And as I mentioned in my previous podcast, I didn't really enjoy the start of this project since it entails knitting colorwork flat in the beginning, and I don't really enjoy that process that much. But after connecting the body and knitting it in the round, it's a pleasure to knit, and I really like the process and also how it's turning out. Let me show you the yarn real quick. So as I said, I'm using Filcolana Arwetta held together with Isager Silk Mohair, and this beige one is in the color 977, and the mohair in the color 0, and this blue Arwetta is in the color 340, and the mohair in the color 41. So yeah, there you have it, my first work in progress, the terracotta sweater. I can't wait to have this finished, and I do believe I'm going to adore the finished garment. So my second work in progress is the Sølje Jakke, a beautiful wrapped cardigan by the Norwegian designer called Lill. So this is a wrapped cardigan knitted from the bottom up. You start off by casting on stitches and knitting this cabled bottom edge flat, and then you connect it in the round. So you knit the body in the round, and then you later will steek it to create the opening at the front. And then I do believe you knit the sleeves separately and connect them to the body, and then finish off by doing raglan decreases, so it will create a raglan at the top. And once you have cut open the front edge of the cardigan, you pick up these stitches that I have put on hold, and you knit a cabled front edge of the cardigan. The cardigan also features this cabled panel at the back of the cardigan, and then you also knit cables on the cuffs of the sleeves, and I also believe you knit one cable along the entire sleeve as well. And I really like this design. I think the cardigan is so pretty, and I can't wait to have it finished so I can wear it. This cardigan is knit on 3mm needles, and the recommended yarn is a fingering weight yarn by Hillesvåg called Sølje. I, however, decided to knit mine in Vilje, which is another fingering weight yarn by Hillesvåg. And I do have the yarn here so you can see. So this is a 100% Norwegian lamb's wool, and this one is in the color 449 marled light beige. Vilje is quite similar to Sølje, but I decided to go with Vilje since I had read on the internet that some find this one a bit softer on the skin. I would say this yarn feels a bit rustic, but not in that scratchy and prickly way that some yarns may feel. But I really do believe that this is a yarn that I will enjoy to have on my skin because it doesn't feel itchy. It has this scratchy feeling, but not that itchy feeling. And I find that very hard to describe. But I really like this yarn, and you just have to feel it yourself. I would describe this as a thinner version of Rauma Fivel. If you felt that yarn, I would say this one has this similar feeling when you touch it, in the way that it is rustic and a bit scratchy, but not itchy and still quite soft, if that makes sense. I hope it does. So far, I really enjoy this yarn, and I believe this may become a new favorite. I would also like to mention that this pattern is not available on Ravelry. If you would like to buy this pattern, then go over to Lill Frost's Instagram account. I can put it over here on the screen, and follow the link in her description box, and there you can buy the pattern. Unfortunately, the pattern only comes in Norwegian as far as I know, so I decided to download and buy the Norwegian pattern and then just try my best to translate it. So it's definitely doable. However, I do understand quite a bit of Norwegian, so that may help a bit. But I definitely recommend you to try out this pattern if you want to, even though it's only available in Norwegian, because it's very unique, very beautiful, and to me, worth it. Let me know if you would like me to share the sticking process with you, and if you would like me to guide you through how I do it, and if that's something you would find interesting, and then maybe I can try to share that process with you. So the third work in progress I would like to share is the Copenhagen cardigan. The Copenhagen cardigan is a pattern by the designer PetiteKnit. It's a top-down raglan cardigan knitted flat. I'm knitting this as a gift for my mom, since she has asked for a light gray cardigan in a very nice soft yarn. This pattern calls for a DK weight yarn, and the recommended gauge is a 21 stitch gauge on 4mm needles. I, however, didn't meet that gauge on the recommended needle size with my yarn. My gauge is a 22.5 stitch gauge, so therefore I decided to size up instead. So I'm knitting a size large to hopefully fit a small medium size. And since my mom is a bit more sensitive to itchy and rustic wool, she asked for a very soft yarn that she can wear next to skin. And therefore I decided to knit this one in a very soft and luxurious yarn combination that I'm very excited about. So the yarn combination I decided to go with is, let's see, and as you can see, we have the Arwetta once again, one of my favorite yarns, and this one is in the color 950, and I'm holding it together with this Cashmere Lace by Gepard Garn, and this one is in the color 520 light gray. And this is actually my first time knitting with cashmere, and it feels so luxurious and so soft to the touch. I really enjoy knitting with this one, and pairing it together with this Filcolana Arwetta, which is also a very soft, it creates this very luxurious and extremely soft fabric that I do believe my mom will find very nice on her skin. So this is a 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon base, and this is a 100% cashmere, and it's a lace weight yarn. But as I mentioned earlier, this yarn combination created this a bit tighter gauge than what the pattern recommends. So keep that in mind if you would like to knit this cardigan in this exact yarn combination. But I do really like how it's looking so far and how the yarn knits up. I'm planning to modify this pattern slightly by, for example, not knitting the pockets. And then I'm also planning on knitting the buttonholes with a larger gap in between, so not as frequently as in the pattern. And yeah, I think it's going to be beautiful and I'm very excited about it, and I think my mom is too. And the last work in progress that I would like to share with you is the jasmine scarf. So here it is, the jasmine scarf, a pattern by Pearl Soho. It's a free pattern available on Ravelry. And I do need to apologize because in my previous video I said that this pattern is only available in French. However, it is available in English as well. I just hadn't found the link to the English version when I looked for it on Ravelry. You can find the English version as a link under the project page on Ravelry. So I'm very sorry about the confusion I caused there. However, this is a beautiful pattern. It's this scarf knitted in this herringbone textured pattern. I'm knitting this on 5mm needles, which is not the recommended needle size, I believe. But that's because I wanted to knit it in a specific yarn, and I saw other knitters on Ravelry using this exact needle size for that yarn. So yeah, I just decided to go with that as well. I'm knitting mine almost exactly to pattern. The only modification I made is that I knit only 4 pattern repeats instead of 5. And that's only because I want to make sure that I have enough yarn to knit a quite long scarf. And the yarn that I'm using is this Drops Air in the color 3 or pearl gray. And this is actually leftover yarn from a previous project that I made last year. I knitted a sweater for my mom. So I have about 4 skeins left from that project. And my plan is to knit the scarf until I run out of yarn and see how long the scarf gets. So let me show you the scarf again. As some of you may be able to tell, you can see I haven't knit so much on this since I last showed you this one in my last podcast. That's because I have so much fun with all my other projects at the moment. And yeah, but this is that type of project where I knit on it every now and then when I have time for it, and I'm not in a rush to finish it. Yeah, but I really like this project and I really recommend this pattern as well. So that was all my current works in progress. But before we end this episode, I would like to take this moment and answer some of the questions you have sent me. So the first question I have received is, how did you become a knitter and how did you learn how to knit? I started knitting about 2 years ago, and before that I had crocheted a bit, which sparked my interest in learning how to knit. So once I decided to start knitting, I learned everything I know about knitting by following YouTube tutorials and watching other people online knitting. One of the first tutorials I followed was the step-by-step sweater, a tutorial by Handmade by Florence here on YouTube. This video was so well made and educational, and taught me how to knit my first sweater. So I really recommend that video if you're a beginner and if you want to start knitting and want to learn all the basics and have someone guide you through how to do it. Then check out her video. So I will write her name here on the screen so you can go and check her out here on YouTube. So the second question I have received is, what made you want your master's in pharmacy and how do you find the time to knit? Well, I've always known that I wanted to study something related to healthcare. I've also always enjoyed chemistry and biology in school. So when I discovered the master's program in pharmacy, I just knew that was the perfect fit for me. I've always loved studying and I dedicate a lot of time to it. So knitting has become my sort of way to relax and also express my creative side alongside my studies. So that's why I make sure to set aside time for knitting during, for example, study breaks and also during my free time. So the next question is, are you the only one in your family or those around you who knit? If so, what does your family think of your passion? At the moment, I'm the only one in my family who knit, which I'm hoping to maybe change sometime. I come from a big family with 7 siblings, including myself. So it would be very fun if I could maybe convince some of them to take up knitting in the future. I have, however, managed to get a few of my friends interested in knitting, which is so much fun. But for now, I actually don't know that many other knitters. And that's one of the reasons why I enjoy this so much, this podcast, and also the online knitting community, to have all these people to talk to and to share my passion with. But with that said, I of course also get a lot of love and support from my loved ones as well. And the next question is, what are your pattern suggestions for growing in your knitting skills? Well, first of all, my biggest piece of advice for someone who wants to improve their knitting or grow in their knitting skills is to be brave and try new things. And with that I mean, try to knit patterns that initially might seem a bit too challenging or maybe beyond your skill level, and give them a try. Because that's how I have grown as a knitter, by trying new things and stepping out of the comfort zone a bit. I would also recommend a beginner or anyone who wants to advance their skills to not stick to patterns that are too simple. In my opinion, the key to learning is motivation, which is why I would suggest a beginner to knit, for example, a sweater instead of a scarf as a first garment. Because personally, I find it much more rewarding to see a sweater growing on your needles than maybe a just simple scarf. But that's just my opinion. So for example, for those who are looking to improve their lace knitting skills, I would really recommend the pattern called Kutar by Sari Nordlund. I showed that sweater in my previous podcast, and that was a sweater I actually knit as a beginner, and I really enjoyed that project, and I also really enjoy the finished garment. It's a round yoke sweater with lace only on the yoke and also on the sleeves. But if as a beginner you would like to start with something a bit more simpler and something that guides you through the entire process, then I would really recommend you to check out that tutorial I talked about previously, the step-by-step sweater by Handmade by Florence. It's available as a free pattern and tutorial here on YouTube. And the next question is, how do you block your knits? Well, I actually don't use any specific or fancy techniques. I usually just soak my knitting in warm water with a bit of wool soap, and then I lay it out flat to dry. I have also recently discovered how useful steam blocking can be. I often use my steam blocker to block my knitting or my garments during the knitting process. So for example, when I want to check the fit of a garment, then steam blocking can be very quick and easy. You don't have to wait for it to dry. So what I do is that I lay out my garment or my project on the floor, and then I just steam it. I don't do anything like specific. And I have used both the low temperature setting as well as the high temperature setting on my steamer, but I do often wet block my project, the last thing I do when I finish a project. So the last question is, do you have a favorite knitting tool / equipment? Well, I do actually, and that is this needle case by the brand called Mood. And this is a leather needle case in the color Whiskey, and it looks like this. So it's this little foldable needle case in leather that you can just fold out like this, and then it looks like this on the inside. So this is definitely a knitting necessity for me that I carry with me everywhere I go, or at least everywhere I bring my knitting. So it carries all my my interchangeable needles, and also, like, for example, my scissors. I have some measuring tape and some of these plastic cords that you can thread onto your needles and then put stitches on hold. And yeah, like some small needles for weaving in ends and stuff like that. So I really like this needle case and would definitely recommend it. I really like how it folds up and becomes this small little compact thing. So it's very convenient to have this with you when you're on the go. So that's definitely a favorite of mine when it comes to knitting tools, equipment, acquisitions, whatever you want to call it. And I really recommend it. With that said, I think we've reached the end of this episode. I really hope that you enjoyed it and maybe got some knitting done. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting me. And I wish you a wonderful rest of your day or evening. And I hope to see you in my next episode. Bye!